Hi everyone, and welcome to Youth Amplified,
a podcast that inspires, empowers, and connects.
I'm Ronna.
And I'm Brian. And in the spotlight today with ANZAC Day just around the corner, lest we forget, but then what are we remembering?
We're joined around the table by Salsabil, Mason, Coraline and State Member for Campbelltown, Greg Warren. So let's dive right in. So when you hear the phrase, lest we forget, what do you personally think it means? So I think, Coraline, I'll go to you first.
It means that we should never forget the soldiers who have sacrificed their lives for our freedom and the peace and our safety.
Yeah, it's about remembering those who have not only served, but also those who have, unfortunately, given the ultimate sacrifice with their lives in defence of this nation, whether it be in war or on peacekeeping operations.
What do you think?
I agree with that. So I think that lest we forget definitely means the risk or the possibility of forgetting the sacrifices and what everything the soldiers endured, the hardships, sacrifices that they experienced.
What do you think, Greg?
Well, I think it's broader. I think there's also a confusion sometimes when I remember when I was at school and they said, lest we forget. And I was thinking, hang on, we shouldn't be forgetting this. But like all the other panellists said, it's about remembering and commemorating those who have served, those who continue to serve, those who made that ultimate sacrifice and didn't come home. But I think more broadly today, it's also about let's not forget about our veterans. Let's not forget about those veterans who aren't with us and their families and their children. And I think ANZAC Day is a day not to remind us, but it's almost like a day where we do come together as a country to remember those who did serve and those who aren't with us anymore.
Absolutely. Now, we talk about courage, mateship, on a side of banter. Are the values of ANZAC still alive, do you think? And do they matter to your generation?
I feel like that courage, you've got to stand up for what's right, and that mateship, the friendship, the bond that you have with your friends and the banter is to keep that connection strong.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I think that these values still, they're still really important to us, but I feel like they matter in a different way. So for example, courage, back then, it used to involve the physical hardships, whereas now it involves more standing and speaking up against injustices, and I feel like we always face challenges, even if they're so minor, but we're still facing them. So I feel like it's definitely changed. The perspective has changed.
Great thoughts. Now, Salsabil, we'll stay with you. Love your answer. Now, in terms of ANZAC Day, do you feel that it's inclusive of all Australians, including the multicultural community and the Indigenous communities?
Yes,
what are your
I
thoughts?
feel like it definitely is, because if it wasn't for the sacrifice of our diggers, I feel like we wouldn't be here today. And as someone from a multicultural background, I definitely do feel like this is important, especially amongst the schools. I feel like it's very important for the students to sit and experience an ANZAC ceremony to reflect on the past sacrifice the soldiers definitely did take.
Yeah, well, when you look at, courage, endurance, mateship and sacrifice, that is based on those pillars that are at the battle site of Salsabil. That was during the Kokoda campaign from July 1942 to November 1942, a brutal campaign. It was a changing step for Australians who served in World War II. The then government was in minority. They brought their troops back from the Middle East to hold ground. Curtin was the opposition leader. Then he went to Bob Menzies and said, look, we need to bring our troops home. We have to hold ground in New Guinea. If we don't hold ground in New Guinea, next stop is to Cape York and Darwin. And then we saw the bombings of Darwin as well. But to the point discussed before, I think that whilst their foundations in that battle site, they're foundations of who we are as Australians, about endurance, sacrifice, mateship. And you can carry that through the fundamentals of life. And it's so heartwarming for me seeing young people embrace that and understand it.
No, absolutely. I'm going to stay with you, Greg, because my next one is really for you. And do you think there's enough recognition for modern day service roles like, healthcare workers, volunteers, first responders?
I would not draw a correlation to those who made the ultimate sacrifice, but I would acknowledge your point where making sure that we give the recognition for those who do have the courage for that sacrifice and the endurance to do so, which brings around that great word mateship, which is an Australian word that we pride ourselves on. But do I think we do at the moment? Yeah, I do think we do, but it's one of those things where there can always be more to be done.
From trenches to TikTok, what does peace mean to young people today? And how do we keep the ANZAC spirit relevant in a digital world?
Okay. So what peace means to, young people today is being safe in our environment. Because I noticed that a lot lately with, my school assemblies, finding peace, being at peace with your friends, enemies, and, feeling safe in your environment. And how we can keep the ANZAC spirit relevant in today's society through social media is doing what we do now is through social media posts, remembering the soldiers through memory posts, and every time even recognizing the soldiers by even just saying hi to them and acknowledging their service and by thanking them. But it's relevant to us through social media now, and back in the day it's a little different, but now social media can impact a lot of people through videos and stuff.
You were part of a project in school not too long ago.
Yes, I was.
Tell us something about
So we got first, we're the #1 school in the entire world that got this award. I think it was national. So at St. Patrick's College, we did a project by interviewing past veterans, such as soldiers from the Iraq, Afghanistan war.
And that wasn't too hard for you, just had to look in the next room at home.
Yes, I just had to walk down 17 stairs, walk past the hallway, and knock on the door. There we go. But yes, it's not, So interviewed Iraq, Afghanistan, World War I and World War II.
Talking about digital, do Mason or Salsabil, would you like to add something to that?
Just drawing from how to keep their memory alive, rather. I think, one of the main ways that we can do that is through education, whether that be through social media or young people just even taking a slight interest in going to lectures or whatever. I myself have done a number of things for my school, brought in things from my own collection and taken on classes and spoke to the whole school in a assembly scenario for ANZAC Day, Remembrance Day, Vietnam Veterans Day, and those sorts of things.
Excellent. What do you think?
I definitely agree. I feel like social media is a really great platform to advocate and to, I guess, bring alive what ANZAC Day really is and what it truly means.
I mean, Greg, you remember during COVID, I think to me that's one of the best things that came out of COVID was ANZAC Day morning when everyone came out of their houses.
Yep.
And the whole street was just full of people remembering.
I remember well, and Coraline, her dad is a good mate of mine and a veteran from Afghanistan, Iraq, a US Marine, came around the front lawn of my home. I rang him up. I said, mate, do you want to come around? And brought the family around, and we had a whole heap of people out the front, and we had a speaker set up, and we still commemorated and remembered. In terms of social media, these guys would have a bit of I'm no genius on social media. Anyone who follows my pages would see that. But social media is exactly that. It's a media. It's about telling a story, selling a message, promoting. But I think something that is very healthy today is seeing how young people use their social medias for a positive impact to tell that story. And that's something so important.
Absolutely. We're sort of thinking, how do we move from remembrance to action? Making ANZAC Day for some more than just a day off. And that's something which I'd like to throw open to the table. What do you think? What are your views?
I think that we can definitely encourage community services, and we can gather a bunch of volunteers, and I feel like we can place a great emphasis on courage and leadership amongst the youth. We can implement it through education, so we can teach the youth about this day.
Now, on the thought of remembering the ANZAC soldiers, if you were to send a message to a soldier from 1915, what would you say?
I would say that your courage and your sacrifices are more than just fighting for your country. Like, you're basically fighting for our freedom, for our peace.
I don't know what much else you could say other than thank you for volunteering, because that's one thing that you've got to remember. For a lot of these early wars, there were volunteers.
Oh my God, if I had the privilege of speaking to a soldier from 1915, I would definitely start off with, would you ever think that you would be this much recognized in the future greatly? Like, did you ever possibly think that there would be
History books.
Yeah, history books, announcements every ANZAC Day?
I know you.
Thank you and come home soon. That's what Mason said, basically. Thank you. Come home soon.
Coraline, and we'll throw this around the table too. In conclusion, how do you think your generation could carry the ANZAC spirit forward in a way that feels both relevant and real?
Relevant. So with my age, definitely social media. Well, what's real is that I think it's amazing that I have a connection with a past soldier, my dad, and I think to keep the connection real, that young people like us should connect more with our past and the people who have served.
Well said.
I just need to correct Coraline. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I trained with the Marines, and I remember very well, and even talking to your dad, that's something that the United States do very well.
Yeah.
Is their veterans recognition and particularly Marine Corps.
Mason, do you want to add anything to that? Keeping it relevant and real.
Yeah, I think again, in our generation, this day and age, I think social media is definitely a powerful tool that will keep it relevant, because let's face it, who is not addicted to their phone at this point?
Hey. Sick of the thing. Never stops ringing.
Well, apart from Greg Warren, their phone. I think, that's going to be a powerful sort of pillar in keeping it, again, relevant and real in a way that young people will be able to sort of understand it and kind of relate to it.
Well, let's give the last word to Greg. Keeping it relevant and real moving forward, Greg.
Well, I was at a school today at the MacArthur Adventist College. They had a catapult party, they had a bugler, they had an entire service, and so many of our schools are doing that now. I'm so proud on ANZAC Day when, you go and you go with the crowd and fellow veterans and everything, and you see all these kids rocking up. And I would have to say, taking the veterans out and the ex-service personnel, I reckon 80% of them are children. We never had that. When I was born and raised in Dubbo, we never did that. It was a day off, and my dad would go down to the dawn service. I would go with him, but that'd be pretty much it. But right now, we see the lead up to it. We see things like this going on and the conversations going on and young people engaging and wanting to learn and the enthusiasm to understand it. And Mason, I didn't know you were writing the history of everything, and that's a fantastic thing, because it's a beautiful history. I mean, we're as Australians, we're a young nation, but we're a proud nation, and we've served in every theatre.
Thank you, Salsabil, Mason, Coraline, and State Member for Campbelltown, Greg Warren, for joining us today.
Well, till next fortnight, let's continue to inspire, empower, and connect. And remember, your voice matters.